By the end of his military career, he was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history, having received not one, but 2 Medals of Honor. After his service in the Marines, he became an outspoken critic of U.S. wars and wrote a scathing book called War is a Racket. By the way, he also exposed an alleged fascist coup to remove President Franklin D Roosevelt from office and overthrow the U.S. government. I'm your host, Bruce Whitman, and this is the incredible story of Major General Smedley D. Butler, next on Mark in History. This is the historical marker for General Smedley D. Butler, located here in the foyer of Philadelphia's City Hall. Ironically, this marker honors Butler's public service as Director of Public Safety for Philadelphia rather than his 34 years of military service. Now, let's learn more about the amazing man behind the marker. Smedley Darlington Butler was born July 30th, 1881, in Westchester, Pennsylvania. He was the son of Thomas and Maud Darlington Butler and raised as a Quaker. Both Quaker grandfathers served in the Civil War, and their war stories inspired Smedley with a love of all things military. Thus, the family earned their nickname, the Fighting Quakers. On February 15, 1898, the USS Maine mysteriously exploded and sank in the harbor of Havana, Cuba. 260 U.S. sailors died on that battleship. Stirred up by the press, the American public blamed the sinking on Spain, which then owned Cuba. The motto was, "Remember the Maine? To hell with Spain." In April, America declares open warfare against Spanish rule in Cuba. Caught up in Spanish war fervor, 16-year-old Smedley Butler could not wait to join up, so he lied about his age and enlisted as second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. Unfortunately for Lieutenant Butler, the Spanish surrendered before he could participate in the Spanish-American War, which ended on August 13, 1898. The easy military victory left the U.S. with a troubling inheritance: possession of the Philippine Islands and its people. Like the Cubans, the Filipinos had suffered under Spanish rule and wanted independence, not another master. When President William McKinley decided to make the Philippines an American territory, the Filipinos rebelled. Thus began an armed conflict between the First Philippine Republic and the United States. The Marine Corps sent Lieutenant Butler to Manila, Philippines in April 1899 in his first opportunity for military action. How did he commemorate this occasion? Like any good Marine, he got a tattoo. A traveling Japanese tattoo artist gave Butler a gigantic Marine Corps emblem tattoo from his neck to his waist, which immediately got infected, relegating him to 3 days of limited duty. In October, Butler finally saw action when he led his company of 56 Marines to take the town of Noveleta from Filipino troops of the new Philippine Republic. By noon, the Marines had dispersed the native defenders and taken the town. Later that same year, rebels in China started a Boxer Rebellion, an anti-foreign, anti-colonial, and anti-Christian uprising by Chinese members of the righteous Harmonious Fist. To Westerners, these Chinese nationalists were known as Boxers because of this group's dedication to martial arts. In order to protect Christian diplomats and missionaries, U.S. Marines were sent in as part of an international response. Once in China, Lieutenant Butler and the 2nd Battalion of Marines took part in the Battle of Tientsin on July 13, 1900. During the fight, Marine Private C.H. Carter fell wounded with a compound fracture of his left leg and in terrible pain. Butler climbed out of his trench to rescue him, but was shot in the thigh. Despite his leg wound, Butler and his small group of Marines carried Private Carter for 17 miles to safety. 4 enlisted men would receive the Medal of Honor in the battle. Back then, commissioned officers were not eligible to receive the Medal of Honor, so instead, Lieutenant Butler received a brevet promotion to captain while he recovered in the hospital 2 weeks before his 19th birthday. Next month, the generals of the Allied armies decided to take Peking City by scaling the eastern side of the Tartar Wall. The Marines planned to scale to the top of the wall and rush the Chinese Boxers. As Butler scrambled to its base, a bullet hit his chest, knocking him unconscious. When he awoke, he discovered the bullet had not penetrated his flesh. Rather, it had flattened one of his shirt buttons. For many years after, he carried that button that had saved his life. From 1903 to 1915, Butler led command units in the military occupations of Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. The politicians who sent him to those places, most notably Woodrow Wilson, claimed that the missions were there to preserve stability among restless natives and to make the world more democratic, more free, and more like America. These occupations were later called the Banana Wars because their real goal was to protect American commercial interests in the region, particularly those of the United Fruit Company. Butler was not only a soldier, but an inventor. Captain Butler received a patent for a special harness and saddle frame to keep the company's machine gun from falling off the animal's back during maneuvers in the jungle. Butler also received a patent for another invention, which he called the Improved Infantry Fire Control Scale. It was designed to improve the use of ammunition by indicating the proper sighting of a rifle when the enemy is invisible to the firing line. After the Honduran campaign, Butler returned to Philadelphia in 1905 to marry Ethel Conway Peters. The couple eventually had 3 children, a daughter, Ethel Peters Butler, and 2 sons, Smedley Darlington Jr. and Thomas Richard. Relationships between Mexico and the United States had completely deteriorated by the time President Wilson took office in 1913. A surge of anti-American propaganda appeared in Mexican newspapers, posters, and billboards. Death to the Yankees and down with the gringos. Wilson wanted any excuse for an American attack on Veracruz because he had hoped such action would lead to the downfall of the Mexican dictator, Victoriano Huerta. In March 1914, Butler went ashore at Veracruz, not as a soldier, but as a spy. In preparation for an invasion, Butler made his way secretly into Mexico City to determine the size of units and states of readiness of the Mexican army. Pretending to be with the U.S. Secret Service on a mission, Butler met President Huerta, who gave him free access to all the military garrisons of Mexico City. Butler returned with valuable maps, which he hid in the false bottom of his bag. When President Woodrow Wilson learned that an armed shipment was about to arrive in Mexico, he sent a contingent of Marines and sailors to Veracruz to intercept it on April 21, 1914. Over the next few days, street fighting and sniper fire posed a threat to Major Butler's force, but a door-to-door search rooted out most of the resistance. As a result of the Veracruz campaign, Congress authorized officers to receive Medals of Honor, which had formerly been awarded only to enlisted men. For his actions on April 22, 1914, Major Butler was awarded his first Medal of Honor. Butler attempted to return his medal, explaining that he had done nothing to deserve it. The Secretary of the Navy, Josephus Daniels, ordered Butler to keep it and wear it as well, so as not to diminish its merit for those other military men who also received the medal for Veracruz. The following year, Major Butler was in Haiti, fighting Haitian rebels. During a battle that lasted less than 20 minutes, Butler and his Marines took the rebel stronghold and crushed the resistance. This ended the revolution. For bravery and forceful leadership as commanding officer of detachments of Marines and seamen during this action, Butler received his second Medal of Honor, as well as the Haitian Medal of Honor. Major Butler achieved the distinction shared with Sergeant Major Dan Daly of being the only Marines to receive the Medal of Honor twice for separate actions. During World War I, Butler was, to his disappointment, not assigned to a combat command on the Western Front. In October 1918, he was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General at the age of 37 and placed in command of Camp Pontenenzen at Brest, France, the largest embarkation camp in the world, which funneled American troops back to the States. The camp had been unsanitary, overcrowded, and disorganized. Butler began by solving the problem of mud everywhere. He raided the wharf at Brest of the duckboards that no longer were needed for the trenches. Soldiers now stepped on boards instead of mud. For his exemplary service, he was awarded both the Army Distinguished Service Medal, Navy Distinguished Service Medal, and the French Order of the Black Star. In 1924, newly elected Mayor of Philadelphia, Freeland Kendrick, asked President Calvin Coolidge to lend the city a military general to help him rid Philadelphia's municipal government of crime and corruption. Coolidge authorized Brigadier General Smedley Butler to take the necessary leave from the Corps to serve as Philadelphia's Director of Public Safety. Within 48 hours of taking over, General Butler organized raids on more than 900 speakeasies, ordering them padlocked and in many cases destroyed. He also attempted to eliminate other illegal activities, bootlegging, prostitution, gambling, and police corruption. Eventually, Butler's leadership style and the directness of actions undermined his support within the community. After almost 2 years in office, Butler resigned under pressure, stating later that cleaning up Philadelphia was worse than any battle I was ever in. On January 1st, 1926, Brigadier General Butler returned to his beloved Marine Corps. From 1927 to 1929, Butler was commander of a Marine expeditionary force in Tientsin, China, known as the China Marines. When he returned to the United States in 1929, he was promoted to Major General, becoming, at age 48, the youngest Major General of the Marine Corps. As he neared retirement age, Butler turned to giving paid lectures to earn income. Unfortunately, in 1931, Butler violated diplomatic norms by publicly recounting gossip about Italian dictator Benito Mussolini without naming his source. According to the story, the dictator allegedly struck and killed a child with his speeding automobile in a hit-and-run accident. Mussolini was quoted to say, "It's only one life. What is one life in the affairs of the state?" The story sparked an international incident. Mussolini flat out denied the story. The Italian government protested, and President Herbert Hoover, who strongly disliked Butler, forced Secretary of the Navy Charles Francis Adams to court-martial him. Butler became the first general officer to be placed under arrest since the Civil War. He apologized to Secretary Adams, and the court-martial was canceled with only a reprimand. Years later, the story was verified by the journalist who was there, Cornelius Vanderbilt. To have worked for 33 years with a spotless record, to have been awarded 2 Medals of Honor and 16 other decorations for service to my country, and then wind up my career in the Marine Corps being placed under close arrest like a criminal, well, it was a savage blow. Not surprisingly, General Butler left active duty October 1st, 1931, and entered private life with plenty of fight still in him. During the Great Depression, the unemployment crisis facing the nation worried Butler, and he decided he wanted to do something about it. So on March 2nd, 1932, Smedley Butler announced his run for U.S. Senate. Butler's platform was taxation of wealth and a pledge to clean up the Senate. Few listened. Incumbent Senator James J. Davis handily beat him in the primary by more than 2-1. In May 1932, 17,000 unemployed veterans of World War I gathered in Washington, D.C. to demand early cash redemption of their service bonus given to them after the war. This group became known as the Bonus Army. They wanted their money now, but the U.S. government would not pay out until 1945. Most of the bonus army camped out on the Anacostia Flats, a swampy, muddy area away from the federal core of Washington. July 16, 1932, Congress adjourned with no resolution to their demands. Thousands of angry veterans surrounded the Capitol. After Congress snuck away, President Hoover was left to deal with the angry veterans. Retired General Smedley Butler spoke to the crowd.
Makes me so damn mad a whole lot of people speak of you as tramps. By God, they didn't speak of you as tramps in 1917 and 18. No.
9 days later, President Hoover ordered the U.S. Army to clear the marchers' campsites, led by future World War II generals Douglas MacArthur, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and George Patton. Using horses, tanks, tear gas, and fixed bayonets, 400 regular Army troops and over 200 cavalrymen drove the bonus marchers from the city, killing 2 veterans and wounding nearly 1,000 others. The bonus Army marchers with their wives and children were driven out and their shelters and belongings burned. Although the bonus Army incident did not derail the careers of the military officers involved, it proved politically disastrous for Hoover, and it was considered a contributing factor to his losing the 1932 election in a landslide to Franklin D Roosevelt. In 1933, a secret group of Wall Street bankers and wealthy industrialists began planning a military coup to overthrow the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Why, do you ask? It was to save capitalism, of course. FDR had abandoned the gold standard. This group wanted the gold standard back. This alleged plan became known as the business plot. This corporate cabal wanted Marine General Smedley Butler to lead a militia of 500,000 men into Washington to establish a fascist dictatorship and save capitalism. The allegations of the plot came to light when General Smedley Butler testified under oath to the existence of the scheme in 1934.
The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institution. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe.
While nobody was prosecuted, a final report by a special House of Representatives committee confirmed some of Butler's testimony and was conclusive about the plot. There is no question that these attempts were discussed, were planned, and might have been placed in execution when and if the financial backers deemed it expedient. For some people, General Smedley Butler had saved American democracy. In his years of retirement, Smedley Butler saw clearly that the conflicts he had fought in had all served the interests of U.S. corporate investors. In 1935, he wrote the expose, War is a Racket, a biting condemnation of the profit motive behind warfare. I was a racketeer for capitalism. Looking back on it, I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was to operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents. In 1940, he continued lecturing despite ill health. He died of pancreatic cancer on June 21, 1940, just a month short of his 59th birthday. He was buried back home at Oakland Cemetery in Westchester, Pennsylvania. By the end of his military career, Major General Smedley Butler had received 16 medals, 5 for heroism. He is the only Marine to be awarded the Brevet Medal and 2 Medals of Honor, all for separate actions. He had also become an unrelenting voice against the business of war. There are only 2 things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes, and the other is the Bill of Rights. War for any other reason is simply a racket. 1 year and 6 months after his death, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. If history can be taught with stories, it can never be forgotten. Please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell to stay informed on the latest videos. And don't forget to leave your comments below and tell us what you like about this video.